Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to 3 News Now. I'm Stephanie Haney. Today is Tuesday, January 11th. Thank you for being here for the top stories from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. We start off with the story of the funeral procession today of Cleveland police officer Shane Bartek, who was honored today after he was killed when what was determined to be in the line of duty. His funeral was held this morning in the Cleveland area at the Grace Church of Middleburg Heights. That's where the community paid their final respects. He was shot on New Year's Eve at around 6 p.m. in a parking lot of an apartment complex on Rocky River Drive. He was a 2-year veteran with the Cleveland Police Department. His twin sister, Summer, spoke at the funeral. Here's what she said. "I knew Shane wanted to be a police officer with his joy he had with our first set of walkie-talkies growing up. He would go to one cul-de-sac and I would go to the other and we would talk to each other." She went on to say that she wishes she could tell him one more time how much she admired him, how he has always been her idol growing up and always will be. She says she's 13 minutes older than Shane was, but he always treated her like a little sister, that he was her protector, secretly watching over her and making sure that she was okay. She recalled one of the last conversations that they had. She said that she had asked Shane if he was scared if anything were to happen to him on the job, and he replied with this: "Life is too short to care so much and get upset about every little thing. It will play fine out in the end, or if not, I will be up to see Dad and the rest of the family. It's a win-win." Unfortunately for the city of Cleveland and for his family surviving, Shane did pass away after being shot on December 31st. And his final resting place is now at the Holy Cross Cemetery on Brook Park Road. Today, the Cleveland Browns, Cleveland Guardians, and Cleveland Cavaliers shared a joint statement. That statement is this: "As Cleveland police officer Shane Bartek is laid to rest today, it reminds us how thankful we are for the commitment and the service he and so many other members of our police and public safety community provide every day. Officer Bartek was tragically killed during attempted carjacking, and we have lost someone that was passionate about protecting and serving. He was also a lifelong Cleveland sports fan, and that, along with his special dedication to our community, is something we never take for granted and appreciate greatly. We extend our condolences to his family and friends as they experience this painful and senseless loss." If you'd like to see more from the services honoring Shane Bartek today, we have those on WKYC.com. We did stream the publicly available portions of those services today. Now today, Cleveland Mayor Justin Bibb addressed vaccinations, COVID-19 testing, and in-person learning at schools. This was part of a multi-city virtual press conference. The Cincinnati Mayor Aftab Purval was also there, talking about what can be done to increase precautions against the Omicron variant. Here's what Justin Bibb said. He said the biggest thing we can do to stop the spread of COVID-19 is to make sure our residents get vaccinated. He went on to say right now in the city of Cleveland, only 45% of our residents are vaccinated. He says that's not good enough. Cleveland Department of Health Interim Director Brian Kimball reported that the city had over 5,000 COVID-19 cases last week alone. Justin Bibb said that he is urging caution and concern for the hardest hit areas, particularly the communities of color here in the Cleveland area. He said it's important that we focus our efforts to make sure our residents feel confident in the vaccine and confident in the importance of the science. This is just 1 week after Mayor Bibb has officially been sworn into office. We have that full briefing on WKYC.com if you'd like to check that out. Now, speaking of the Omicron variant, the CEO of Pfizer, Albert Bourla, said yesterday that a COVID-19 vaccine specifically targeting the Omicron variant will be ready soon. He went on to say, while he was on CNBC's Squawk Box, that it'll actually be ready by March and that his company has already started making those doses. Now, he did acknowledge that he doesn't know whether the Omicron-specific vaccine will be needed or how it will be used, but he said those doses will be ready if and when they are approved. Also on Monday, the CEO of Moderna said that their company is working on a booster for the fall that targets the Omicron variant. So not a different vaccine entirely, but a booster that would also target that Omicron variant. The Omicron variant has sent new COVID-19 cases to record highs around the country, 700,000 a day in the U.S. on average. That really kind of destroys the record set a year ago. The number of Americans in the hospital with the virus is about 110,000. That's across the country. That's short of the peak last January. Remember when not everyone had access to the COVID-19 vaccine a year ago, and that was 124,000 people in the hospital. Omicron does, however, appear to be causing milder illness than the Delta variant, particularly for people who are vaccinated. Now let's take a look at the latest COVID-19 numbers in from the Ohio Department of Health. Today, the Ohio Department of Health reports 19,611 new cases. That's a big increase from yesterday. We saw a slight dip yesterday, just over 18,000 new cases, and back up today. The positivity rate right now, so when we talk about the positivity rate, what we're talking about is the percentage of COVID-19 tests that are coming back positive. That's 27.5% right now. And now we know that 30,435 Ohioans have been confirmed to have died related to COVID-19. Here in Ohio, the total number of people hospitalized being treated for COVID is 6,727. And out of those people, we are at about 1,200 being treated in an ICU. Now, we have some interesting information coming out of the Cleveland Clinic. They are now giving visitors what they are calling a partnership pledge upon arrival to the Cleveland Clinic. So this is something new. This is not something that's been done in the past. So when people arrive to the Cleveland Clinic, everyone will be given a copy of the Visitor Partnership Pledge. It gives guidance and various safety guidelines and precautions with the surge in COVID-19 cases. The clinic told 3 News, by entering the hospital, visitors agree to these items, which will help us maintain safe, high-quality care for our patients. Unfortunately, those who do not adhere may lose visitation privileges. So some of the highlights include, please do not visit if you are sick or someone in your home is sick. You must wear a mask covering your mouth and nose and wash your hands frequently for everyone's health and safety. Throughout the visit to the hospital, please stay in the room with your loved one to prevent the spread of infection. Please be respectful of our caregivers. Here's an interesting note here. Do not raise your voice or use profanity. We are all on the same team. So clearly what we are seeing here is a response to people not being respectful to those care workers there. You can read that entire document on WKYC.com. Now, speaking of people that get into confrontation, if you are watching The Bachelor, you know that there are 2 women on The Bachelor from Ohio. One of them is Shanae Ankney. She is from Sycamore, Ohio. That's about 3 hours southwest of Cleveland. The other is Rachel Rakia. She's 25 years old. She recently graduated from Ohio University. She is a private pilot. In this last episode on Monday, Rachel mostly waited in the wings, but Monday's episode may as well have been called the Shanae Ankney Show because it was all about her. And let me tell you, she got tons of screen time. She was getting coaching from a fellow contestant named Cassidy, who, by the way, has gotten into confrontations with several of the women. And Cassidy and Shanae have a very similar look. They are both blonde white women, and they look like they really could be sisters. And in the show, we see Cassidy giving advice to Shanae because Cassidy went on the first group date, Shanae went on the second group date, but she didn't know she was going to go on the second group date yet. And Cassidy was giving her tips on how to get the group date rose, because if you watch the Bachelor franchise, you know getting the group date rose means that you are safe from elimination, and Cassidy had already won a group date rose. So she gives Shanae some tips. Shanae goes on the next group date, immediately gets upset because the Bachelor, Clayton Eckert, is flirting with another woman, Elizabeth Corrigan. Not necessarily Shanae getting the situation that she wanted. Shanae does not win the group date, and she gets into a feud with Elizabeth Corrigan. Now, it looks like in the edit that Shanae uses this opportunity to sort of throw Elizabeth under the bus because she does seem to be having such a strong connection with Clayton. And she goes to Clayton and she tells him that she thinks that Elizabeth is two-faced and that she's not here for the right reasons. And if you watch the franchise, you know that is the kiss of death. And from there, things escalate. Clayton talks to Elizabeth. Elizabeth talks to Shanae. They seem to hug it out, but then later we see them actually going at it again in front of the group of women, and the group of women side with Elizabeth. They do not side with Shanae. But when we look at previews for upcoming episodes, we do see Shanae in those previews. So it does seem that she will be sticking around for a while. But tough time for Shanae on this particular episode of The Bachelor. Now there will be 2 weeks off, so we'll have to wait a couple weeks to find out what happens with Shanae next. We're also going to have to wait a couple weeks. We're going to have to wait more than a couple weeks to find out what happens with the Cleveland Browns. But we did hear from General Manager Andrew Berry today about a couple of the players, one of those being Jarvis Landry. He's a wide receiver, arguably a fan favorite, but he's in coming up on the last year of his 5-year contract with a lot of money on the table. And if the Browns do waive or trade him, they could save a lot of money, and it would only cost him about $1.5 million. So it could save him about $15 million. That's definitely a concern with these extensions coming up for other players. But today, Andrew Berry was not being definitive on Jarvis Landry's future with the Cleveland Browns. He says he thinks everybody knows how much respect the organization has for Jarvis Landry and what he's meant for the team and the organization over the past several years. That he's been a productive player since the day they traded for him. That was back in 2018. A key piece in terms of the organization and how it's evolved over the years. But would not say much more than that. But if the Browns did waive or trade Landry, it would increase their need to improve that wide receiver position, which is something that is quite frankly lacking at the moment. Right now, Donovan Peoples-Jones is slated to be the top receiver next season. He got 34 passes for 597 yards and 3 touchdowns in 2021. Would have loved to see that touchdown number be just a little bit higher for our top receiver, but that was not the case. But Andrew Berry did say unequivocally that he fully expects Baker Mayfield to be the starting quarterback next year in 2022. He says, yes, we expect Baker to be our starter and to bounce back. He says his job is to assemble the best team possible, put us in a position to consistently compete in the division, make the playoffs, ultimately win a championship. I know that's what we all want. That's definitely what I want as a lifelong Browns fan. He said that's something they strive to do every year. He also said he knows there's been a ton of speculation out there about the Baker Mayfield future in the Cleveland Browns organization. He says he thinks he's been fairly straightforward on that. He's not going to get into the speculation. Now, our 3 News sports analyst Ben Axelrod tweeted that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry have both publicly committed to Baker being the starting quarterback next year. So we have no choice but to take them at their word. But it is interesting to point out that neither of them have really used the injury this season as an excuse for the performance of the team ending up with just a losing record, not a winning record. So not what we wanted to see, that record being 8-9 at the end of the season. Not clear what they think the issue was. If they don't think it was tied to the injury, we will see what happens next season. And when the fall does swing back around, that's when you'll be able to participate in the Akron Marathon. That will be happening on September 24th, 2022. We just learned that today from the Akron Marathon Race Series. That's presented by Summa Health. So we found that out. We also found out when some of those other races will be. The National Interstate 8K and the 1 mile is scheduled for June 24th and 25th. The Goodyear Half Marathon and 10K will be on August 13th. Public registration for those starts January 20th. There will be a tiered registration process for that Akron Marathon and Half Marathon. That'll open up to previous participants on January 18th, and then that'll go on from there. Also, you guys must be hungry because there are a lot of food stories that are in the top stories on WKYC.com today. So make sure you check that out. New menu items at the Burntwood Tavern in Rocky River. There's a new custard location opening up. So head to WKYC.com, get your food fix, because that seems to be what you all are particularly interested in on this Tuesday, January 11th. And one final word, thank you for the people who let me know that yesterday I mistakenly said that it was Monday, January 8th. It was not Monday, January 8th. It was Monday, January 10th, all day long for 24 hours. And today is Tuesday, January 11th. And we will be back tomorrow, Wednesday, January 12th, with more 3 News Now.